What do you guys think about starting each show out with complaints? Just full on complaints, like with the thing that's bothering you the most. Like, do you think that would get annoying for an audience? Or is that what stand-up comedy is anyways? Just
all it is.
complaining.
Observations and complaints. I'm all in.
Yeah, that's gonna, because Toledo keeps getting on me. Scott, I'll get there in a second. Toledo keeps getting me on me. He's like, we need some benchmarks just to hit some spots, so we're just not too loosey goosey. And that's a technical term. It's a really technical term, loosey goosey. But I'm really trying to up my game. I'm really trying to get into the 25th century.
You're talking the vernacular of a pro.
Yeah. See, I've got it all figured out. We're gonna hammer it out, huh? So, but I think that
goosey around here, boys. All right, 23 Skidoo, be on the numbers.
But that sounds like a good opening portion of the show, don't you think? Observations and complaints. I think that's a pretty good one. I would like to start out with this observation and complaint. I've been observing my social media, and thus I'm going to complain. So Scott, you've worked with me a bunch before. I don't know if you've ever seen me do this, John, but there was this bit I would do on stage where I would lay down on the ground and put my hand up and then do Kermit the Frog. And I
loved it.
And I always felt that, somebody just putting their hand up or putting a Kermit puppet up was a hacky thing. But so I thought, you know what? Nobody lays down and does it. That's the ballsy part of it on stage, right? But I needed a joke once I got down there to have a reason to get to Kermit. And the joke was Morgan Freeman, and that's when the audience realized that Frank Caliendo had already been paid, or something like, like that. And that's when Frank realized he'd already been paid, so he was just going to lay down, some kind of thing like that. It varied and was probably better back then when I'd rehearsed it. But somebody in the middle of another Instagram post tells me, it doesn't post about that Instagram post, they tell me they lost respect for me in Minneapolis the day I laid down on stage and said that I'd already taken their money and I didn't care about them. And I was like, well, that's the one serious thing you took from the show. That's the moment where you thought I was speaking to you and telling you I don't care about you. So I get into it with this guy slightly, and I couldn't take it. So I said, unfollow me, please. You don't deserve to be a part of this. And and then he gave me some long thing, and I just blocked him. But come on, that's where you're coming after me, laying down on stage and saying, and Frank had already been
Here's the
paid.
fun part, Frank. He was right. Comedians don't go on stage to make friends. They go in there to have some sort of a weird hole in their life filled with laughs and self-gratification. You don't care about them, especially the ones that are going to bitch and cry the entire time. So no, you didn't care about that guy. I don't care about anybody that wants to go to a show and walk away with something they didn't like. So yeah, that guy can shove it up his ass the whole way too. You don't like them that much. This is all for you and your family and a paycheck at the end of the day. If I went and watched somebody else at their work and they're like, hey, I really want to make you happy, I think they're weird.
Yeah.
So that seems like a complaint from, like, if somebody would have saw you do that in 1975, like they had never seen Andy Kaufman, never seen Jim Carrey, never seen Steve Martin even. Because Steve Martin was the first one who basically took the facade of phony show business. Right. Hey, Sammy Davis Jr., personal friend of mine. That whole thing.
Whoa. Let's celebrate that impression for a second. Good one, Scott. You actually, you kind of sold it. You could have sold it all the way. I knew who it was.
That was the most influential person. You know how people, John doesn't know this because he doesn't do social media, but people put up their top 10, like most, each day they just post an album that really influenced them. And I had posted Steve Martin's, I think it was it Let's Get Small, the first one? I think so. And then there was George Carlin's Class Clown. And between the two of them, they were like a gateway drug to the world. Because I grew up in a smaller town in Iowa where people like this guy that you were complaining about live, I guess. I'm not saying they're from there, but they believe that.
I think you just did, and you're going to.
Well, and I don't want to. because
And I
it
think
goes.
Scott also accused me of not being able to understand the premise because I'm not on social media. So I had to like back out of
It's
entire
the top 10 album thing.
having
You're
an
right.
idea what influenced you, but I don't get it.
But your comedy, it's like, how can someone miss that? It's like that woman you used to do an impression of who complained at the Columbus Funny Bone that this guy was just talking with different voices. I don't get it. I want my money back. Oh, that was beautiful.
I forgot that. You were in the lobby, right? And she said, you were so great. And she came out and said, you were great, and complained about me just doing silly voices and not making sense.
I only understand people complaining at a comedy club when they won tickets. They don't know who the person is, and still don't understand who they complain to. Your whole objective to go to a comedy club is maybe you don't like it at the end. Who does that hurt? Why do you have to go and make a thing about it? And that's when social media, you go up to Frank at the end and say, I lost respect for you. That tells me he knew who you were. He was looking forward to the night. And then when you actually said, I get paid for this, as a joke, but you do.
Right.
He got that you weren't doing this when your own volition for his entertainment. And that's tough for him to handle. This guy does this for money and not just for me, the audience member. Well, I don't respect that.
You think I just get on a plane back in the day, stay in a hotel for a few days to tell some one-liners to get them out there?
My favorite thing I ever did was years ago. No one will get this but you two. But years ago when
because we're on social media.
Yeah, because you guys get social media. Everyone else is not. If you've ever been on the social media app, Ding Flap, which is the one I invented just now for the three of us.
Okay,
that's the only way you're going to understand it. So this lady was complaining, and I was taking complaint calls my first probably second year of radio, and I always tried to appease them. I always felt like, oh, my God, I'm ruining it for everybody who works here if I'm the jackass. And I'm like, and this lady had a complaint that was just ridiculous, that she said I wasn't allowed to do female impressions because I did a Jennifer Tilly thing. And I'm like, why? And she goes, because you're not a woman and you can't understand what we've been through. I'm like, I think you're taking this way past where it needs to be. I did like 2 minutes of this thing, and she started to go on. And in the middle of it, I kind of stopped listening. And I just started to sing, I don't care. Ming, 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 zoom, zoom, zoom. I went full Kevin Meaney. And she's like, see, this is why I'm going to talk to your managers now. And I'm like, please do. Because I'm trying to make this as silly as I can. I just don't care about you this much and your problems and your complaints. I don't think people understand that. And in today's age of keyboard warriors, they think that everybody cares about their complaint. And when they run into a wall that doesn't, they just don't complain anymore. It's an amazing cannon back at them to just go, you got a problem? I'm sorry that bothers you, but honestly, I don't care.
Yeah,
unless it's something that matters.
They think you have a comment section, and they believe that they can get into the comment section and change things by being a part of that. And most of us, especially as I'm learning from you and Dennis Miller and others, is just say, fuck off.
Fuck off. And you know what? That's what they're saying to you. Some guy emailed me once, and he's like, all you do is complain. And I'm like, all you do is bitch through email at everyone you've ever met. And he goes, you don't know that. And I'm like, it's 100% of my experience with you. And he's like, well, that's bullshit. And then he wrote, holy shit, but he spelled Holly. And I just,
Holly.
I highlighted it, and I'm like, I'm dealing with a fucking Mensa member. Stop bothering me. And then he'd go away.
And I thought maybe he came back. Oh, no, I was never in Mensa. How dare you? I forgot to tell you this little.
I didn't touch any little boys. Oh, wait, that's a different one.
Here's this little piece of information I left off. So in the end of he's still giving me this long dissertation on why I'm a terrible person. And I said, one of my things was, oh, by the way, Chris Farley didn't play Batman either. That was a joke as well. And he told me Chris Farley was a gentleman. And that's where I just stopped, because Farley would have been like, you're a jackass. You're a cake-faced moron.
Actually, Farley would have gone, you're a jackass.
Yeah, I tried, the reason I didn't do something like that, say something terrible in that situation. One, I love Chris Farley. Two, I didn't want my message to get out there, screenshot it, and then everybody sees it. And I'm thinking, that's the worst thing, because John Farley, who I love, and Kevin Farley, who's a nice guy, his brothers, just great guys. And they, John Farley once came up to me and goes, "You still doing that impression of my dead brother?" And I was like, "Oh my God." I'm like, that's the greatest sense of humor of all time. I mean, it was years and years later, but holy cow, and he was on my show. But John Farley, one of the funniest guys. He was in that Gruden commercial where he knocks on the bar, bar counter. He's like, he just looped the Corona commercial. So that was surreal. Did you have a comment before we get going here, Scott?
Well, on this subject of being in stand-up comedy world, I think most stand-up comics will tell you the best comedy that they've ever seen in the room is when it's not just somebody standing there reciting their act for the 100th time. And that's what's truly missing. If people think, oh, well, we don't need to go into stand-up comedy anymore. We can watch it on Netflix. We can watch it on a Zoom, and those are other places. But the energy in a room that somebody who can riff off of things, you think of Bill Burr's classic rant against the Eagles, the Philadelphia sports fans. In my dry bar special, which is supposedly coming out this week, finally, it's taken 2 years. Long story. The best part of it is
it longer than this setup?
No, it's in the setup. This is explaining it.
Okay, gotcha.
Supposedly,
I know. I think my mom says that, by the way. I watched the thing, and it's very painful to watch your special. Frank doesn't like to watch almost anything he does.
John doesn't listen to anything he does either. Really.
Yeah. The one thing that really stood out that was great in the special to me was I had this bit about a minivan, and I asked an audience member, a younger guy, what do you drive? And it kind of sets up the thing, which is a little, predictive. And he says, I drive a station wagon. Well, that totally fucks up the joke. So then I'm like, I look at him and I tell him, you just wrecked this whole bit. Do you like go to people's comedy specials and wreck their bits? You know what? Let's just cut this out. We'll go to the next guy. And I'm like, what do you drive? He goes, a minivan. Now, the whole point was, this was the funniest part of the whole special because none of it you would ever see in a comedy special. But in this one, it is. And it's because it's not like the rest. Now, that same guy that you were complaining about would probably say, well, that didn't seem very professional. You just kind of yelled at the audience members and told them that we should cancel the special and that you're ruining it for us. To me, that's super funny. That's way funnier because I don't see that in a Netflix special. I don't see that when I watch most specials. They're always produced to the edge.
Yeah, I don't want to do everybody. When I first went to LA, they're like, you got to do your special in a theater. I'm like, I want a small comedy club like Robin Williams did that first little special he did where Tony Danza was in the audience. Oh, this is hilarious. And there were a bunch of little I don't know how famous they were at that point, but it was Robin just on the stage going crazy. And that to me was better than any huge stage special because it feels stale to me. It feels too prepared. I'd rather have it feel like, hey, this is just happening. And in a club, that gives you that, but they don't like the aesthetics and the ambiance of that on television.
Wasn't your Comedy Central audience terrible when you did your first one?
Most of them are awful because those Comedy Central specials, everybody shoots them all at the same time that Comedy Central presents. So it's one audience. They don't know who anybody is, and you might be the fourth special. Jimmy Schubert had just gone, and he was hilarious.
Brilliant.
It was okay, but you're going, this deserves so much more. And I was like, crap. And I remember just going up. It looked great in the end because they jazz up the audience. They laugh doctor it, but I don't know. This is where I wanted to get going. Two things. The Major Garrett episode I still get texts from Major Garrett all the time. He told us. Did I tell you this, John? He told us stuff he's never told anybody. He's using that. He
remembers it. He remembers doing the podcast.
There's some truth to that. I'm not sure. Well, yeah, because he's listened to it. Unlike us, he listens to it.
Because remember in the middle of it when Major Garrett went, "You're a jackass."
It is amazing. He's giving it to family members, and they're going, "I didn't know that stuff about you." So he was jacked up about it. He was like, "This is amazing. This is a big thing for him personally." And I texted Bill Walton right after haven't heard back from him. Nothing. Although
still orbiting the Earth, it'll get to you eventually.
So people who haven't listened or watched the Bill Walton episode yet, just all you need is about the first 10 minutes, and then cut to the part where Dave Pash comes in, and that.
I think you have to watch the whole thing. I don't think you're allowed to scrub that. I think you've got to sit through it all like we did. You have to live our interview nom, the same way as a viewer as we were as people who were just. It's weirder and weirder. I have a guy who emails me on the station who's like, love the show, starting to love the podcast a ton. He goes, I didn't know who Bill Walton was really. Knew the name, doesn't follow basketball. And he said, I tried to break down what he was saying. I wanted to know what this was. It had to have meaning. And he sent me kind of a lexicon of words and what he thinks Bill meant. Like the dragon or the pterodactyl were airplanes. And
yes.
And these things were like the war in San Diego was something having to do with every time you drive by Oceanside and the base. And he calls that the war. And he's like, I figured out a few things and it started to make sense. But I've listened to it about 4 times. I'm like, that's way more than I could ever sit through that, because I would go insane. It was, again, we talked about it. I can't explain what happened, but I think you have to absorb it all, much like you just have to ride out an acid trip.
Was it by any chance, this is the guys that sent me something on Instagram that said he understood it. It was Aqua Suqua. That's what. Okay. So Frank, I'm kind of scared. This is from him. I'm kind of scared. I understood Bill Walton. Every time that wheel comes around, bound to cover just a little more ground, is a lyric from a Grateful Dead song.
Right.
Bill will end any story with a Dead song lyric. It's not code. It's learned language from years of touring with the band. I'm a basketball fan and a Dead fan. I said, hey, you're the Rosetta Stone for Walton. Great. He goes, yeah, somehow saving a bottle of air from every show on a Dead tour isn't completely insane. So Smokey the Bear is the sheriff. Bob is Bob Dylan. Bobby, Bob Weir. Seeing Jerry, active or residual hallucination where he sees an image that reminds him of Jerry Garcia.
Like a gardener.
Pterodactyl was probably a response to planes flying overhead, but that's just a guess. So we had multiple people in the audience actually translating Walton. That's kind of amazing when you think
it's
about
really
it.
Cool, and I'm glad Aquafina's a fan of the podcast. That's neat. I didn't know we had.
Bottled at a Pepsi plant. That would be.
So the isn't
John? What was the question that you asked Bill? Was it a statement about how basically the Grateful Dead sucks?
Yeah. I've never done this before either, where I told the other people in the show, hey guys, watch this. Bill, I don't like the Grateful Dead. Sell me.
Yes. I love that.
And he didn't flinch. He just started to sell me. He acted like he could, like that second was prepared. Yeah, had we known going in what that was like, I'd have had a notepad and paper, and I'd have been trying to figure it out too. So I think the audience they're at an advantage because we kind of told them this is bananas, and then they went on. But I'm getting nothing but positives back from the people who actually sat through it. They're like, that was the most fun, asinine thing I've ever been through, and I don't know and they don't know if they loved it, or if they were challenged by it, or now they are challenged because of it. I don't know what it is, but it was something that made everybody feel something weird. And it was just, it's a happening. I'm telling you, that thing was just, that was Tom Cruise on the couch with Oprah for us.
I have one friend who texts me about it as he gets through it on different days. So he's not following completely your lead there and saying you have to watch or listen to the whole thing at once, but he has this mission to get through it. It's like he's like, I'm going to finish this. He just can't do it all at once. He started other of our podcasts since then to give himself a break from the Waltonisms.
Yeah. It's trying to find normal where it isn't, and you're just hoping that in one little moment you'll be like, oh, that's what this is all about. It's the meaning of life. It just ends. We move on. It's very strange.
It's the Holy Grail.
It is. It's just so odd. And I kind of want to go back and listen to it, but I think I hate watching myself, so I won't do it. But it's weird.
You never talk in it, so you can just focus on Bill. You know, that's the one you never. All of us could actually listen to it and not be annoyed by ourselves. That's
Right.
one plus.
That's true.
When we tried to talk, stuff happened. I mean, it was just
that's true.
We
were at our best. What Scott's saying is we were at our best. Because it's finally a time we didn't piss anybody off.
I think there's a positive in that the time we did it, no one that listens to it is pretty much commuting to work. So there's a danger in your car to listen to that. I believe there could be accidents or people could lose their minds.
Well, that would just be things that you're looking at that are actually that could be worse than what you're listening to. Like it's like hanging out with an ugly person so you look better. That's what that is at that point.
People do that? Oh, yeah. Damn it. Then I'm the other.
Oh, yeah.
You're the other. Have you seen your wife? Holy.
If you don't know, you're the ugly one. Shit.
So where are you guys? John, you're in the same position as me. But Scott, where are you in terms of opening up in
wealthy?
No, the economy, the Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what's going. Part of me doesn't care, but part of me, and not about you, but I mean, what everybody else is doing. It's.
Oh yeah, I think you were right the first time, but
no, I try to filter it.
I would tell you that it's not like.
No, what are the rules? What is the law right now? What is being told to you? Do you have specifics?
Yeah, there are specifics, and actually, I get a call from some political survey, and I guess we're trying to learn information about the governor and how I felt about him, and he's a Republican, and I was like, I loved everything he's done. I feel like he's been exactly the way you should do it. And then they were asking me about Trump, and I was finding myself answering almost the opposite way, even though they're part of the same party. It's this weird world where I'm like, if Republican governors, I feel like they're doing a good job with it. They're pushing forward enough, but maybe they wear a mask.
Is that the ugly friend? Put him next to the ugly friend. I mean, did you just draw a parallel? Did you draw a fantastic, incredible? That's why I spend time with Melania, because she's an ugly. She's very.
Let's be honest. Also, if I was in Indianapolis, Scott would be my best friend.
Yeah. Did you see where Nancy Pelosi called Trump morbidly obese?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great.
And I'm like, you know what? Okay, that's funny because I'm a comedian. It's funny. And I'm thinking, could you imagine if when Trump calls some woman morbidly obese?
You don't have to imagine. I did it with Rosie O'Donnell 600,
right.
6,400 times. But hold on, let's get back. What are the
laws?
I want to know what are the laws.
Okay, wear a mask outside.
Anytime you go outside is.
No, if you were like at a park, I think they feel like go ahead, don't worry about it. It's pretty similar to Arizona, I think, in the rules.
I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking now because I wanted to get because
Indianapolis is the one major city in Indiana. And they've been about a week or two behind the rest of the state. So that's another thing that's going on. Whereas we were talking about the whole world determining things or the whole country. There are different places in the actual state that are different rules than others. There's a meatpacking plant in one county. Well, they're like 2 weeks behind everybody else because they had some outbreaks. So ultimately,
what can you do right now? That's what I'm really.
I can do most anything now except do stand-up comedy anywhere. I mean, I don't even believe I'm allowed to do it in my basement. I mean, I feel like we're like considered the most evil, and the opportunity to get people sick is through stand-up comedy. So you can do most everything, even including going and using pools. When you get out of the pool, you're supposed to put on a mask, which are going to create really strange tan lines, I believe, but I don't think it's that different than most of the flyover country.
Are you experiencing any, John, are you going out more right now?
I went to dinner Friday. I keep it real safe for myself. but I've entered a new realm of not caring anymore because no one else does. So it's basically, it's all man for himself at this point. I don't want to blame. I said it with the Callen episode. Did you see the beaches and the Lake of the Ozarks and parties? And it is absolutely insane. And these are the same people that are going to turn around and say, my government didn't do anything to help me, but nobody's responsible. So it's on me. I've basically taken it all on my own shoulders to say, judge the situation for yourself and go or don't go based on that. I was at a kind of a business drinks and dinner thing Thursday night, and it was spaced out well. And the owners are sitting there, and there's a table next to us that wasn't supposed to be sat. It had the little thing on it, says not for, reservations, not for seating. And they're spaced out. Well, a party of 11 came in, and the owner's like, I'm not turning this down. So all of a sudden he just takes that off of that table and pushes two together with one that was a good table and says, now we've got one good table next to us. Next thing you know, the whole thing's full. And I can't blame the owners. There's no law that says you can't do that. It's just suggested. There's no punishment. There's really nothing. So if I'd just been told for 2 months to do my due diligence as a business owner, and I did it, and then I'm saying we have to socially distance or we can only take 25% capacity, and nobody's complying, why am I? He's got to live for himself and make his own or his or her business tick. So I'm kind of seeing it that way. If we're all responsible, it matters, but we aren't. And it's being, a giant spotlight is on how irresponsible we are. What's funny is nothing's different medically at all. And we act like it's over. Essentially, we're in the same boat 2 months ago. It's flattened a little, and we've got a little more preparation, but they gave us the information and said, go nuts with it. Hopefully they'll be good and understand why we just did this. And we're as a society, we're just not. We're completely.
And it's like you said, that Lake of the Ozarks thing where people are just crowded like it's
a Vegas pool party.
Yeah, I was thinking I was thinking Noah's Ark in the Wisconsin Dells, where that was my reference.
Much hipper stuff. You're right.
Yeah. Once again, whippersnapper. I don't have these newfangled situations such as you, John, in your pool parties out there at Lost Wages. I sound like Brady, your co-host now. Hey, I'm gonna throw at it.
I just visualized the three Farley brothers drinking beers in the Noah's Ark, right north of Madison, because that's where they grew up, right? The Farleys?
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah.
It's so pathetic. When I go by the Noah's Ark signs, I always take a picture. Not always, but I've done this before, and I'm pathetic for doing it. It's me being a blue check mark whore because I have him in my phone, but I send a picture of Tommy Bartlett's Robot World, which is a kid is the most amazing thing in the world. You go back and watch it, you're like, this is claymation. And it's Chuck E. Cheese animated robots that we thought were the future. And I send the text to JJ Watt, and I'm like going through it. And I gotta think did I tell you recently JJ Watt just texted me out of the blue, checked in to see how I was doing? Like that was wow, that is awesome. And I asked him if
TJ Watt just texted me and asked me to stop texting him. Similar.
I felt really cool, and that's the only reason I mentioned it right here. Just a blue check mark myself. Yeah. All right. Yeah. But we got to talk, and I'm trying to talk him into Pittsburgh just for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I haven't been this happy since the Patrick Fabian episode.
Yeah. All the Watt brothers in Pittsburgh. That's
John. When you go out, do you mask up? Or do you put a terrible towel in front of your face?
I try. Well, I would. I have masks. If it's required, I'll wear it. If it's not, or if it feels like I'm being disrespectful, I will. I'm just trying to be respectful to other people and read the room. Or anything else. That's kind of how it's just.
Yeah, reading the room seems to be it. I don't go out much, and I don't know if this happens to you, either of you guys. But Michelle went to the grocery store the other day, and they're like, "Oh, your husband was in here the other day. It was great to see him." I hadn't been in there, not like in weeks. But that's why I don't go anywhere, because people say that I've been there, and then they tell everybody that I've been somewhere. And I'm like, Michelle, this is why I don't go anywhere, because people point it out, and I've been telling people, be careful all this time. So I also, like I said a couple episodes ago, I'm just really happy being home a lot.
I told you my mask shaming story, didn't I, on the air or no?
No.
I think so.
Okay, so the first day it was required in our office building, I had a white medical mask. Now, the only time we need to do it is if we leave the studio or our workstation and go through the building where there are other people. So I wanted to go get a soda out of the kitchen, so I put it on, white plain medical mask. And I go in there, and there's a girl in there who's like 24. She works at a station in the building. And I walk by, and I'm like, look at us both being super safe, because she had a mask on. And then she goes, yeah, but your mask is lame. I'm 27 seconds into wearing a mask in my life. And I'm like, really? And she goes, yeah, you need to be dazzled or something. It just looks stupid. And I'm like, well, because it represents a giant plague that is now part of my life. And I don't really want it to be a fashion accessory. I'd rather have it represent what it is, which is a fucking nightmare. And then she, well, you should do something because it just looks stupid. And I'm like, this helps people be responsible? You idiots running around telling everybody. And then so her excuse was, she goes, I think if you tell people to make it a fashion thing, more people will wear it. And I'm like, if that's your end goal, you eliminate the people like me who you tell look stupid. I'm like, if I wandered into the kitchen and went, you look horrible in those jeans, we'd have an HR issue. But she's like, God, I just think that's so dumb that you would just wear a plain medical mask. I'm like, I just want it to represent what it represents. The worst time in my life as far as society goes.
Yeah, maybe put a dead rat on there or something.
Right?
What does this
should have a black plague?
Just dead grandma. A dead grandma.
Dead grandma.
Or 1918, just write that across. Like you're bringing it back. It's like an old. You bought a retro.
Retro mask. I love it, Scott.
1918. You don't see that a lot.
It's
what does this woman do at your work?
She's a mid.
Bubonic. Hold on, that was too good to not save her for a second. Bubonic. That
was my rap. I'm Lil Bubonic.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't know what the fashion trend was, but it was immediate. And I understand entrepreneurialism, but man, it was immediate. She does a midday show for an alternative station down the hall. She's relatively new. She's nice. She didn't intend to be weird. Okay, but it's just like, what are you doing?
Was she trying to be kind of funny?
No,
it didn't sound like
it. In a way, yes. But also, like, her first reaction came out. It was authentic, and she was trying to kind of be, maybe crafty, a little bit crafty, easy, clever, something. But I just looked, and I'm like, I've had a mask on. In my life, I have worn a mask for 27 seconds to that point, and already I'm being told it's stupid.
Did you do this? Did you go, hey, one of my commercials for my station just paid for your station?
Well, no, I often go back on the air and talk about the station that's about to go away and how all these people should never be cocky in any situation whatsoever. And we had her on, and she started to go, I'm glad you wear a mask. You're ugly. I'm like, oh, you confuse energy for personality.
Oh, no.
But you go, and the audience just hated her. And I was like, I don't want to do this to her. That's not why I'm doing this. So I just kind of stayed quiet. But it was just silly. It's such an odd thing, the mask, because some people think it's some infringement on on the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and all of that. It's are you decent or not? If a room full of people want you to wear the mask, put the mask on. If it's clear, don't sneeze on each other. It's so basic, and we seem to want to make a fight out of it the whole way. And who cares if it's
that's that whole two parties thing and people fighting against each other because I've heard this argument a few times. It was something I'd thought of early on too, but I've seen it quite a bit. That nobody complains about shoes and shirt going into the 7-Eleven or whatever. You put them on. It's common courtesy.
Right.
And it's just a piece of what we accept. Right now, we can accept this. Now, if it becomes a time where we get to a vaccine and they're still telling you got to mask up, then that's a weird situation.
And then it turns into what to me would be a business forcing the issue, because if they're not necessary, but they become part of our clothing, where it's a requirement, that's just a new thing to buy. I tell people all the time, just imagine for the time being that some people don't see your nose and mouth, they see your genitals. So for those people, just cover it up and treat it like your dick's out. And if they're looking at you like, oh, and they're nervous, just cover it up. It's really no big deal. But you don't have to all the time, and it certainly isn't a law. But people lose their minds people showing up with AR-15s to rallies about reopening the stores and not wearing masks, and I'm an American and you can't. I'm like, Jesus, pick a topic and stick with it. You're bringing a gun to this party. You got to be crazy.
Again, people would do the thing where they combine issues and they make an argument with a totally different issue, as opposed to just living through it and seeing these are two separate arguments. Don't mesh them, because then it gets muddy and none of it makes sense. I have neighbors that are going to fly this week. They basically are going in hazmat suits. Like they have full on get-ups. And I said, I want pictures and text on your trip, because I want to know how you go through TSA. I want to know if they make you take the mask off. I can't believe you're going to have to go into the sensor to, you know, the one that does the air or whatever on you, and you can't unmask, because then if you have a black mask on and it's not glittered up like you're supposed to do, John.
Right, I understand.
If you have a non-glam mask, and you go in that little area where everybody's just breathed without a mask, well, you're defeating the purpose of all of it. So if we're leaving, that's what I actually had somebody from TSA listen to a podcast one time and say, "Hey, be careful when you're talking about us, man." He was joking. He's like, "Yeah." He was like, "Some of these guys are nuts, huh? Yeah. Pull your pants down." So,
well, there's situations that are going on where, okay, we need to wash our hands and be thorough.
Wait, but I want to finish this first. So,
sorry.
They're going to go through TSA. I want to know all the different steps. I want to know what happens on that plane. I want to know what what the flight attendants. All that's interesting to me, because at a certain point I may try to get on a plane. But I want to know all these steps along the way, because it seems like everything that you have to do is against what TSA has been telling us we've had to do besides the AR-15s. But everything we've had to do for the last 20 years or whatever it is, right? So I want to see the pictures. I want to know, because if my life is put in the hands of a TSA agent in two ways, that scares me even more. So we'll see. I mean, I'm thoroughly interested to find out what that whole situation is like. They've got Lysol set for when they're putting. I didn't know you could bring Lysol on in your luggage. They said it's not a carry-on, but they could put it in their luggage.
We always carry the Clorox wipes. I've done that. My wife and I were on such a filthy flight back from Tampa once that we're like, never ever will we sit in these. Well, I was on a flight from Miami to Phoenix that had blood all over the wall when I sat down. So I Clorox wipe. I bring Clorox wipes every time I fly, just because I know that those seats aren't spotless, and I don't know what's been there in the past. Plus, I always assume it's some booger-handed kid, and I just don't want to touch his boogers. It's not because of germs. It's just gross. So I've been wiping everything down for quite a few years. It's really, I mean, it's just take care of you. If everyone kind of does that, takes care of themselves in that way.
Yeah, but there's two different types of thinking. There's the thinking of, if we all take care of each other, we don't have to worry about ourselves. And there's the thinking of, if I take care of myself, nobody has to worry about me. The problem is that we're all hypocrites, and it merges in the middle somewhere. So you have to be ready for some of that. Now, Scott, what were we talking about with washing hands?
Yeah, there's the idea that if you're in a public place and you wash your hands and then they don't have paper towels, I can't imagine something that could blow COVID all over the place more than those dryers, which are a nightmare. You would be better off either not washing your hands, or if you're going to wash your hands, dry them on your pants. For God's sakes, don't ever turn on one of those blowers while I'm in the bathroom with you.
I got a prank ready.
Oh.
It would look like one of those money machines from an old 70s game show.
Oh, yeah, true.
COVID, little red balls flying in the air.
Well, and I was thinking about it just today that I have never cleaned my hands more. And at the same time, I have taken less showers than ever in my life, because I'm just at home. Why?
Wait. Okay, so what's less showers? What's less showers? You don't, like, if I don't take a shower, I don't feel like I'm waking up.
I don't shower when I wake up now. No, I might go even 3 days sometimes.
3?
What am I doing?
You taking shit? Wash your ass.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying that.
Wash your ass.
Okay, I'm not going to give you out too much, but I'm not as regular maybe as you, John. And it might be every 3 days.
Oh, I'm the same. But after every time I go to the bathroom, I get in the shower right after.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. But I'm saying,
wait. What? After you go to the bathroom, you take a shower?
Every time?
It's spruce and deuce. It's the deuce and spruce, actually.
Yeah, that's
exactly. Better to go that way than the way you said it first.
Yeah,
spruce and deuce. I'm gonna clean up and then take a shit.
Oh, that's the worst feeling, though. That is the worst. That is the worst feeling.
I scrub it up after each one. I take at least one shower a day, even if I'm just doing nothing all day long. I can't not.
I can't. I feel sticky. If I don't take a shower, I feel like
I'm not.
Maybe it's because I got more hair than you guys at this point still.
Hey, that might be.
Hey,
true.
Hey, I'm talking about back hair, guys. Hey, back hair.
I got about 23 square feet more skin than you, Tiny.
No, I think surface area we're probably pretty close, even though I'm at a 5'6".
I don't know. We both have huge heads. There's truth to that. All right, maybe I was exaggerating.
Yeah,
we probably go through the same myself.
Talking about
John,
powerful shoulders.
John, when you were talking about this person at the radio station, but it made me think of a larger. Frank and I just do comedy. If we think of something funny, we put it in our act, and no one goes, "Hey, that's about me." You're on the radio for 5 hours a day or 4 hours, depending on what time of the coronavirus we're in.
Right.
You've got to speak the truth of your life all the time. How often have you lost friendships, or how often do you have to, like, you get relatives, people saying, "Why are you sharing this?" Yeah, I want to know about that.
Not too often, because I always go from the it's not from a place of maliciousness. Usually, if I'm making funny or doing whatever, it's a well-known jab. My brother-in-law doesn't talk to me because of it. And
how that?
Because I was goofing around with him about a year and a half ago. We were out at his house in New Mexico and talking, and he was going through some stuff trying to date again after a divorce. And I just was teasing how he has no game. He's a math teacher, so he's very linear. He's a black and white guy. And I would make jokes, and he'd just look, and I'm like, I can't explain these anymore. I feel like I'm talking to somebody who doesn't speak the language. So I kind of made this little goofy character, almost like he was Napoleon Dynamite. And we're joking around, and a friend of his sent it to him. And he's like, "I've never been so hurt in my life." And I texted him back. I said, "I thought you'd understand it. I apologize." He didn't. He deleted my apology, and I'm like, I did what I'm supposed to do. If I made somebody feel bad and honestly had a reaction to it, I'll apologize to you.
You know, it was in that apology, John.
What's
Chris
that?
Farley was a gentleman.
I was thinking the same thing.
Well, my apology did also include "you're a jackass." So, but no, I was super nice about it. And if you don't want to accept my apology, no problem. I can dismiss you with the best of them. So oh well. But
see, I learned years ago, probably about halfway into our friendship, there are certain things I don't tell you because you'll bring them up on the air. Now, if I were to tell you, "Hey, I don't want to talk about this," you won't talk about it. But
right.
Anything I put out there, I know, because I know you and you're coming from being authentic, that it's game. It's got a good chance. And you'll do it just to watch me quiver a little bit and worry about. Oh, I know.
But I think there's half of your reluctance to tell me these things is to see if I will. Like, there's certain times where, like, "Oh, I shouldn't have said that." Like, here we go. But
if I do it, listen, if I blow it in the middle of something and I know I'm ready to take, especially on your show, I'm ready to take it. I'll just take the blows because I'll be like, I just set up this is like my dad at the dinner table thinking he's telling a joke, and now he's the butt of everything, and he's gonna send us all to our rooms. But
basically, you tell me I don't want this out, it goes in the vault. And there's plenty of stuff that's not talked about.
Sure, yeah. No, but I realized early on, if I was just if we were just talking in, not confidence, but if we're just going back and forth, that there's a chance it was going to come back up unless I said something about it. And it's not, I don't think it's a name. That's just what you do. That's your life. It's, I wasn't offended by it. The first couple of times you hit me with stuff that you remembered that I couldn't believe you remembered. I'm like, oh crap. I gotta know that he's going to,
You're talking about the time when we were in the car together and you did Rodney Dangerfield as a pedophile, and I nearly drove off the road because it was weird. It was late at night, and it was just totally out of character for you to go down the road for going down, and I was dying. And I remember where it happened. It was by the airport, and I was dying. I couldn't stop laughing at how
I kind of remember
dark
it now.
you were.
I think I blocked it out. I did
it was the darkest you've ever been with me at that point. I was, you're always Frank, but this was the darkest, strangest thing ever. We're going back and forth with the darkest Rodney, and then I just couldn't do it. It was yours, and I loved it. And I brought it up on the air, and I remember your face going, "Why are you doing this?" Yeah, because it was
the hardest I've ever laughed in my whole entire life was in Cape Cod, touring with Frank, and he was in the back seat telling Morgan Freeman and his 16-year-old cousin that he was dating.
We've talked about this. We've brought this up before.
The same thing. And it was all wrong.
I'm not doing it right now. We've actually talked about it on the podcast.
Tell it again, because it looks like he's uncomfortable. Even the dog behind him just closed its eyes.
It was the same kind of thing. And I mean, I am laughing just hysterically. I mean, I'm crying. I'm having a hard time breathing. But,
And then I remember right after I told Frank, I'm like, "You, sir, have no class." And I dropped you off.
You're going to get on social media, and I'm going to blast you.
I lost a lot of respect for you on that car ride. That was hilarious. So, I do that all the time with that. But, if somebody's talking to me, I kind of sponge all the conversations and try to glean something off of every one of them where it's like, it doesn't seem like that's too bad. And, if it's personal, I stay away from it. But, yeah, for the most part, nobody's ever abandoned me. I mean, you guys probably have jokes and stuff in your acts where you're like, "Oh, that came from the time." You probably have somebody bother you and say, "I wish you wouldn't do that."
Yeah, it's only celebrities that I've stayed away from my family stuff, but I kind of want to put them in now because you can't get cheese in Chicago without going through me. My Uncle Phil, who's passed away. We'll get into that at some point.
Oh, Uncle Phil needs to be a full hour.
Yeah, it might be a one-man show.
A full hour.
There's also the
comedy clubs here in Phoenix are going to open up too in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I just got some information about that because I asked how they were doing it. So they're 500 to 600 seat rooms. They're going to do like 250 in the room. It must be that percentage that you can percentage of the fire code,
right?
But it's what do they do? 6 feet apart tables. That's going to be weird. 200 to 250 people in the 600, 500 to 600 person room. You can't mix tables, so whoever sits at a table, that's just the group that came together. Staff and masks for customers. If the available for customers, Purell stations at the entrance. This is so weird. It's like performing in a bubble. Disposable menus, adjusted show times for more time to clean.
That was the weird thing. I was at a restaurant and they said, "Would you like a disposable menu or a QR code? And you can look at our menu on your phone." And I'm like, wow, that's a thing. Like, people are that concerned that they can't wash their hands or keep it off of them. I mean, you shouldn't be at a restaurant if you're worried that the menus can kill you. You should probably
as dirty as that menu. Your phone.
Oh, 10 times worse. Because
after seeing what's on it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there you go, boom.
And consider that the stuff that's on it is usually being used right before the spruce part of the Deuce and Spruce.
Sure, exactly.
My phone's in a real rugged war zone, man. The things it goes through. Oof.
Rugged war zone.
It's not pretty. I would not be on the other. I would not, man, there's a depressing moment when that phone gets picked off a shelf and enters my life.
The thing some spy in China is seeing.
I'm safe.
Are amazing.
They're afraid of me.
They're afraid.
It's awful.
So I'm looking forward to that, to see how that, because I'd go up and do some time. Brad Williams, I think, is coming to town. Yeah. This might be a potential guest list for us that I'm going through at this point.
Well, here's the fun part of that is that with Brad coming in, he's supposed to come to the station to promote, and our station's not so sure we're going to take guests.
I was
So
asking, did
now
I
there's
ask you or
that.
Toledo about that? That's an interesting, because especially if somebody flies and then comes
Yeah.
into the station, that's a weird situation.
My rule basically was, after we sat down and talked, I'm like, if there's one person in this building that's uncomfortable with it, we won't do it. And I just don't want other people to feel the pressure.
Yeah.
Like, if I want somebody to be able to voice a concern and say, I'm just not comfortable with this, and think it's silly, think it's not silly, whatever. That's enough for me to pull the plug on guests until people are ready.
I just got a text from an afternoon DJ just mentioning that they're a little uncomfortable about Brad Williams being there, but maybe that has nothing to do with it. Maybe that's something that Brad has done.
2018, Scott. That was something somebody else sent you.
Well, that actually is interesting to me when I think about it, because some people do have reputations, and some people are known as people that get around a little bit, to use some of my cool vernacular.
You think if I want Felipe what's his name?
Esparza?
Esparza. Sorry, I was going to say Espinosa because I had a kid in high school named Felipe Espinosa. But if Felipe Esparza comes in, I want him there. He comes in drunk and filthy every time he's on the show.
Yeah, how can you trust somebody who's in that situation? But so if somebody doesn't want, let's say you're going to have that guest, the first guest, and they go, no. The next week, are you asking again to see if everybody's comfortable, or is it just we're just not having this until?
We'll probably put out. I would suggest to, like, if that's the way it comes back, we're gonna probably address it more this week, but put out just an anonymous email, so you don't have to. It's just back to the boss. He's the only one that would know, and then he'll say, yeah, we've got a couple people that aren't happy with it, and just occasionally send it out again. Just say, hey, you guys okay with this? I have no issue with that. A lot of them aren't there when the guests come in, right. But a lot of times comedians show up with like 9 of their friends, right? And they just
that's an easy. You can come.
Can't do that.
And no entourages.
But they don't pay attention to that anyway. When you're
if they can't get in the building, then right. I think that's a completely fair situation, and the club has to know that going in. Then there's responsibility on that end too.
Right. And it's weird, but I just don't want, like I've said in the past, I've got people who I work with whose parents live at their house, and you just don't want to be the guy that gets weird about it and lets that trickle into their world, and then all of a sudden dominoes start falling just because you needed to talk to Brad Williams in person. Brad will be back next year. This year's a wash anyway. Right. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can try to get people back to the clubs and stuff, but everybody's tiptoeing. So we'll figure it out as we go. Everybody keeps saying I want to get back to normal. I'm like, no, it's a new world. We're going forward to what's next. I don't really think there is a back to normal, because that eliminates what just happened and you can't ignore it. We have to move forward to something new. And I really I think baby stepping our way through rather than just trying to do what we used to do, that we can't. So I'm resigned to the idea that whatever comes up next, and I'll adjust to that. I'm not going to try to plug in 2019 to 2020.
I worked with Brad about 7 years ago, and I knew nothing about him. It was right before
he was going to be shorter than you.
Well, I knew nothing.
You didn't even know that?
You didn't know that?
I didn't. No, I didn't know any of it. That was a little one of those where you're like, hey, what?
Where you're like, this guy's going to be related to Robin.
Yeah. So he just absolutely murdered on stage. I mean, just like killed. And then after the show, hot woman after hot woman was so into him to the point where I remember sending a message to Frank saying, if you were only a foot shorter, you would do so well with women. But it was crazy. Two girls that looked like sisters were bothering him so much after the show about wanting to come back to his hotel room. I'd never heard this in my whole career with anyone. And he's like, it feels a little weird. And I'm like,
I did a show at the Fort Lauderdale Funny Bone, and the late show was, I did, I think, 2 shows. And then Carlos Mencia did a late show, the 3rd show of the night. And Brad Williams was opening for him. And I came into the green room, and I'm not even sure who was standing and who was where. And I was just like, what's that? I'm going to go. He's like, hey, cool, man. I was just like, you're not even
crazy
here yet. You're not even working yet. And you're working.
I watched Frank and Ralphie May turned Brad Williams. He actually shrunk Brad Williams physically, and I don't know how you do that, but you did it. Because we were backstage at that comedy show that my station puts on, and for some reason you two were in cahoots, you and Ralphie, with Brad, and you had said something because Frank came by for like a 2-minute little pop-in hello, and Frank, you hit it just so deadpan because you were like, yeah, well, I wouldn't do this normally, but the $15,000 just to show up. And Ralphie followed right suit, and he goes, yeah, because I got half of what I get too, and that's double what they're giving you. Brad maybe made $4,000 that night, maybe, for a full 45 minutes. I don't remember what we paid him, but it wasn't a huge amount. He did a really like a favor. And you two sunk him with your $45,000 complaints because he took a deal. And he's like, yeah, no, Ralphie just killed it. And then that same night, Ralphie goes, I give you $1,000. You go out on stage where you take him when Brad's done and lift him up. And I'm like, he hates that. And he goes, I know. I'll give you $1,000. It's like lifting a battleship. And I'm like, I bet you can't get him off the ground. And I'm like, I can do it. I don't know that he's going to be happy with it. He goes, $1,000. Only deal is you can never tell him you got paid to do it, or I'll take it away. So I go out, and Brad Williams like, hey, that's my whatever. I go out to grab the mic, and I go and lift him up, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And he goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm so sorry. And I picked him up and I put him back. And he left, and he just thought I was one of those typical jackasses that lifts a little person. After Ralphie died, I immediately, that was the first thing I wanted to do after Ralphie died, was tell Brad that I got $1,000 for it, which is perfect.
He thinks he's going to get like, I'm sorry for your loss of your friend, but he's getting, hey, that time I lifted you up, it was for $1,000 from Ralphie.
Right. What's worse is imagine leaving the stage and the host comes out and apologizes to you. You might have thought you did well, but evidently, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything that just happened.
I just see you trying to hoist him up.
And I didn't get him up very high. He is dense.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But yeah, I had to apologize. It was like a year later. I'm like, Brad, I've got to tell you. And the worst part is we all went out to eat after that show. And Ralphie hit me with most of the bill. And he's like, bring your friends, everybody will come. At the end of the night, the bill was like $970 or something like that. And he goes, you're paying for it. And I'm like, oh, I see what happened here. I got killed. Ralphie gave me the $1,000 and I never got to enjoy it. But the embarrassment of lifting Brad, maybe I shouldn't have him in on the show because I don't want to bring him in. Too tempting.
No, I want to reenact it. I want it to happen again. Maybe I try. Maybe I get to try. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, you do it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What are you doing?
Maybe he lifts me. Maybe Brad lifts me. That's the fun. I think that's fun.
John, if you do that, it's going to get it's almost as controversial for social distancing as that Ozark pool. You'll be on all over. Little person, radio DJ, lifts up little person.
Right.
And
not if you say the right term.
Yeah.
What's the right term?
What you said, little person.
Oh, okay.
The PC culture is just words. It's not about what you do.
Yeah. What the headline would read, Holmberg gives M word COVID virus. That would be the thing.
Oh, that's good.
That's the PC nature of it.
And Scott, you're doing some performance this week. That's
I am.
I'm just segueing.
Oh, it's a good one though.
You're gonna.
This is gonna be hilarious to you, John.
I just like the way that Frank used his Johnny Carson skills there to really.
Yeah, he's good.
I guess you're doing a performance against people.
You're doing a. Well, I'd had a full conversation of segues in my head, and I just you're gonna be performing online with Matt Dillon and Louis Black, and that Scott. That sounds like a setup, but it's actually the truth.
It is the truth. Yeah. So tomorrow night they're doing an event for graduates, because graduates, it sucks for graduates, high school, college. So they're getting together about 8 different people to give like a 5 or 10 minute piece. I'm getting 5 on what would be my advice to graduates. And Matt Dillon, actor Matt Dillon from many, many movies, Flamingo Kid, is one of them, which is so great to me because my wife used to have his poster in her room when she was like 17. That would have been her dream, and I am on the same bill as her dream. And then Lewis Black is on, and he'll rant away for 10 minutes on what Lewis Black does. There's other people. There's a guy from NPR and things like that.
Oh,
So
there
tomorrow
are
night.
other people too.
Boy,
I like that it's Matt Dillon and the Shaw Scott Redemption.
Yeah.
I just love that the class of 2020 is so fragile. Man, oh man, could they be getting more attention for not being able to graduate? You got 3 extra months off. You're doing school an hour a day. And now all of a sudden, my grandpa had to quit school in 6th grade because he had polio and they needed help on the farm. He didn't get a trip to Cabo. It's not going to ruin them. They'll be fine. They get a better story by not graduating. I think
I have a good story.
We had a neighbor who was upset about senior skip day. I'm like, you had senior skip months.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't have to go to school for, like, these little things are nothing compared to the time you got off. And the way it worked here in Phoenix, or at least in this, the Tempe Union, I guess, your grade could not go down. It could only go up from what you had.
No pressure.
So, yeah, it's an experiment in education. So everything can go up. You can take your chances. People weren't doing things, but those are the people who aren't going to succeed anyways at this point. But you should get the 4.0. You could get 12 to 14 points on your third quarter grade. So you could go from a C to an A just by completing and getting a 70% on your test. A 70% equated to an A. And it is much more difficult to learn online and at home. But
for you and me, not for them.
No, it is.
It takes some time. Yeah.
It is.
No, they are used to taking in information, John, but they're not used to applying it. It's a different thing to apply it on tests and stuff. And some of the teachers time the test that they'd never timed before. So you have to get, and everybody's got open note tests. So they make some of them a little harder just so you can't do real well. So it's a mix and match. If they have to do it again, I think they would have they have to be more prepared for it, because how could they be prepared for this one?
Well, I can tell you this. My graduation sucked because it was May 27th, 1990, and they had it on the football field in Meza, Arizona. It was about 140 degrees, and we were in those awful outfits. So I always tell people, you're not missing anything if they tell you can't go to your graduation. Big deal. But now you got Scott and Matt Dillon and former president.
It's all going to be better.
Yeah, they're getting the best graduations ever, and meanwhile, everybody's what a skip they've gotten. It's the best ever.
And everybody is pandering to them and celebrating them so much more than high school graduates have ever been celebrated.
Yeah. What are they missing? That's what I don't get.
Here's the only kids. Here's the ones I feel sorry for. Kids that were spring sports superstars at their school. Your senior year of high school is, even if you got a college scholarship and you're never going to be more celebrated than that last couple months. So for those kids, those 3 at each high school, that's bad for them.
You're saying that they're going to miss out on tons of senior high ass.
Yes. Yeah, for them, they'd worked hard for that. They worked hard for that.
They earned it.
The last day of school in my senior year, a kid who was a junior went into the French room with a gun, blew away his ex-girlfriend, then shot himself. And then, of course, we had no party afterwards, but it was 1984. And what's so fascinating about it was that was a story for like a day. A day. It was a story for a day. 5 more years later, it would have been, for 3 weeks, Nancy Grace would have broken it down. But that just shows how 24-hour news had really not reached the local levels. What it was doing then was doing a lot of national stories, like the national news. They hadn't really decided that, wow, we can really get ratings off of kids blowing each other away in their schools. So, yeah.
With that said, here's another great segue. Let's bring in Shaun Salehi.
Congratulations, Shaun.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you did it.
Class
You made it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I will say, like.
Hold on, before you go on and give your speech.
Yeah.
How did you do it? How did you finish? It's unbelievable.
Amazing. You've been through so much. Happy Memorial Day to you, my friend.
How are you holding together? How are you even doing it?
Well, I mean, I will admit this is one of the worst job markets right now for me to be going into. So that does suck.
No, that's what you just got to stand out.
Yeah, that's true. But it's it wasn't. I mean, I understand like why people are kind of like trying to make all the graduates feel better at the high school level. Although I feel like, again, my high school graduation was whatever. I think we had an astronaut speak, which was kind of cool. Who like, went to high school. But like, I don't remember his name. But
That's not Matt Dillon or Lewis Black.
True. That's true. It's not.
Did you say someone was there as an astronaut or doing astronaut speak? Because I need to know.
No, like
they just had Tang. That's all. They just drank
Moon,
Tang.
Stars. Was it Neil deGrasse Tyson or just?
It was not. No, well, he has not been to space, but
know.
No, it was, yeah. That's right.
Isn't the future governor of Arizona? Isn't that this astronaut?
Oh, Mark Kelly.
Senator. Yeah.
Mark Kelly. No.
Senator.
Yeah.
But it does. I will admit. I mean, it sucked because I was really looking forward to walking in front of my parents and everything like that to get my.
Well, you can do that.
I did not go to my graduation.
Your college graduation?
I didn't show up.
Wow.
No, I didn't care.
For college or for high school?
For high school, I think I pretty much had to. I didn't care about
Yeah.
it. I care about nothing.
How about now, though, when everybody's got this like 8th and 9th grade educations and all this weird strangeness that keeps going with, kindergarten, first grade, everything's a graduation.
That's an efficient system you got over there.
Not only that, that was a no-look catch.
Oh my gosh!
No look pass.
I was looking at the screen.
You looked like the Jamaican 4x100s. I mean, like Usain Bolt taking
we went over the shoulder.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, that was
seamless.
Well, Salehi, since you're taking so much time to try and get into the story, tell us about your trip across the country.
Yeah, so
that's what I want to hear.
Okay, so
as condensed as possible.
We had to move all my stuff from Virginia to Arizona, so we drove out initially 3 years ago after my 1 year community college, so we had to move it all back when I came back. So we packed up a minivan, rented it just one way from.
Did you spray it down?
We did. We wiped it down.
Okay.
And then we hit the road, and we took the least direct route of all time because my mom really wanted to see Mount Rushmore. And our initial first stop was going to be in Page, Arizona, but the Navajo.
Hold on, your mom flew out?
She did. Yeah,
she flew out, so you put her in peril to bring you back. Okay.
Well, she wished to come out.
Well, that's when you say, "Ma, no, I got."
But keep in mind, Frank, his mother's probably younger than you.
Yeah.
How old is your mom?
55.
Oh, never mind. Just a couple years younger than Scott.
She's older than me even. Wow, she is old.
I can't wait for her to hear this. But
how does she look?
Just tell her it's the Bill Walton episode.
It's the Bill Walton.
Does she look 55?
No, I think she looks great for her age, and like she hasn't.
That's not how you say it.
That's not how you say it.
I think she looks great. I know.
She looks great. Don't qualify it.
You say you guys would nail her.
That's not it.
Teeth.
That's not it.
That's not it. You just Caliendo'd him. You did what you do to me.
That's
Holy
not it.
cow.
That was fun.
That was a jackass right there.
Chris Farley coming out of your dog's eyes is just really
poke 'em, pokey.
Our first stop is supposed to be in Page, Arizona, but it's over by it's in the middle of the Navajo reservation, and they've been.
Do this with your play-by-play voice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just traveling down on our way to the Navajo Nation.
And it was.
Do it, Shaun. You're looking live at Lake Powell in Page, Arizona.
I really try not to change my voice for my broadcast.
You should.
They tell you not.
I really love this.
I
really love this desolate area.
But they.
I hope some cop from Smokey and the Bandit pulls me over, man.
They ended up closing the hotel, so we actually redirected to go to Vegas. Just stayed there. Weirdest town I've ever seen in terms of just how dead it was compared to how it usually is. Only stay
Also-
the night.
You're going to Washington, D.C.?
Oh yeah, no, I told you we took the worst. We took
That's
the least direct route
right
of all
off
time.
the bat. That's 7
Wrong
hours
way.
for
Wrong.
west. You're
So-
13 hours behind schedule the first
Well,
day.
he's going to go to South Dakota.
Yeah. So
Right.
we
so,
went.
but- so-
Mount
so
Rushmore.
tell him about when you get to Seattle.
Yeah, no, we did not make it that far. Did not make it that far.
Look at John. John didn't expect me to go there. I think I actually zagged when he was looking for a zig.
So we went from Vegas to Moab, Utah, which is the only place we were able to actually sit down and eat. Was in Moab, Utah, at a restaurant, and then but they gave us the little, like John was talking about, the little disposable menus. They did not have any normal menus or reusable, whatever you want to call it. Moab, Utah to Colorado Springs, where I was forced to stop to talk to Bill Walton in a parking lot of the Grand Junction Rockies single A affiliate of the Rockies team. That was hilarious.
You
Then
will
from
never forget that.
never,
No.
never. I will remember that parking lot for the rest of my life.
I mean, with this being your final episode,
Ah,
Yeah.
Matt.
Yeah.
you
So,
did-
Shaun, let me get this straight. Paige, Vegas.
so Paige didn't work out. So we went straight from Phoenix to Vegas.
So you never actually made. Oh, okay, I see. So then you went right over through Utah.
Yeah,
Into-
to Utah, then from Utah to Denver, so across Colorado.
I should have.
Colorado.
Hold on. I should have gone Tacoma, from Phoenix, Arizona, all the way. I should have gone there. I missed it. If I one city over,
Oh,
and I
Half
would
of
have.
Frank's joke, comedy, music references come from Steve Miller Band. You have
Yeah,
to
well,
know
you know what?
that's the one.
It's George Cantor, man. It's the Cantor.
Yeah.
The Cantor man can.
Frank's GPS, Steve Miller.
Sammy Davis Jr., a personal friend of
Who
mine.
can make a reference from 1978?
so we went from Denver to then South Dakota, a little town called Keystone, right next to Mount Rushmore. Keystone to Sioux Falls to Kansas City, and then it was a direct line east. Kansas City through St. Louis to Louisville to Washington, D.C.
Miserable. How many days?
So we ended up doing it in 7 days.
And it's just
but,
you and your smoking hot mom the whole time?
Yep, with a van full of crap in the back. So
Rude.
16 states, 3,600 miles.
How many hotels did you stay in?
What? That would be Vegas, Moab, Denver, Keystone, Sioux Falls, Kansas City, Louisville. Yeah, so 7.
I don't know if I could travel that far with my mom and that much small talk. about nothing.
No.
I mean, it would be about everybody who's died recently,
Yeah.
people who she's seen at Euros West, the Greek restaurant, all the stuff. I mean, I'd be like, Mom, put your headphones in, listen to a book.
No, yeah,
Did you
she
pick
was-
up Moonlight Graham along the way by chance?
Archibald Moonlight Graham, man.
Right
I'll
through
tell you what,
Iowa.
it doesn't get any better than that. Hey, this kid can't breathe. Knock the hot dog out of her.
Yeah, that reference went right over my head. I'm going to be completely
You don't know
honest with
Field
you.
of Dreams?
Man.
I actually, that's like the one baseball movie I have not seen is Field of Dreams. And what's funny is I actually thought about visiting the spot in Field of Dreams, but they're creating a stadium that they're supposed to play a White Sox and Yankees game this
That's
year.
where I'm supposed to perform in August.
So yeah,
That
because
was
it took
it?
They
place in
play that
August.
game there.
Oh my gosh, that's
Oh.
going to be so cool too.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, if it happens, I mean,
I mean,
That's
if
the
you build
problem.
it.
it will come.
So you have no job right now. You're back. You're at your parents' house,
Correct.
and you're just going to be looking for a job in a terrible job market.
Yeah. So
No, I'm not
right
trying
now,
to be.
no, yeah. So right now I have an internship with the summer baseball team. So college players usually during the summer will go and play in different leagues around the country, and there's one here in DC. Obviously, there's not going to be any games. They ended up canceling the season, but they're going to be doing kind of like a series of different shows, like podcast type shows or TV type shows through Zoom, and interviewing former players who have gone on to the MLB. So it'll kind of be like this, just throughout the summer, getting more experience, just stuff to add to the resume. Because I did broadcast and call games for them last summer, but I'm not able to do that this upcoming summer. And then hopefully, I mean, the goal is to land at some college, whether it be small college or hopefully maybe even a larger university, and call games for their athletics program once things start opening back up.
Well, I got good news for you because I'm thinking about starting up a team of old guys.
All right.
We need a play-by-play guy.
There you go. All right, I'm in.
All right.
I am in.
Well, I was going to originally try and get into some. We can get into this next time, but just looking at the time, we got to get rolling here. The next time I want to talk about some of these sports coming back, and well, let's do one. There's one topic I want to talk about before we go because I keep hearing all these leagues, and there are two positions. All right. It seems like we either play or we don't play. Everybody plays or everybody doesn't play. And I guess it's because of the unions. But to me, everything is going to get thrown out the window, collective bargaining agreements and all that stuff anyways. If somebody doesn't want to play, I totally respect that person who doesn't want to play. You don't have to play. Don't play. But don't make everybody else not play who wants to play and might need to play to make that check and wants to. And we'll watch anything right now. People are watching Korean baseball, Norwegian death diving. People are watching – that's a real thing.
I know.
People are watching this stuff because there's nothing. People are watching. If I told you how many times a week I get watching Madden and Summerall on the NFL Network right now, or on FS1 or whatever they're on, the replays of old Super Bowls, I go, people will just watch anything, even though they know the outcome. So if somebody wants to play, why not let them play? If they don't want to, they shouldn't have to, and they just have to. Everybody else has to be malleable in their world. Everybody else has to acquiesce to the situation. And as you were talking about before, evolve, John and Scott. We have to go somewhere with this. Baseball is, some baseball, whoever was said he didn't want to play. I'm not going to play. You shouldn't have to. If you don't want to, don't. But there are plenty of people. And baseball, I think, is the safest game, maybe.
Yeah, but I talked to a guy who does broadcast work for the Diamondbacks, not the broadcaster, but he's in the booth, and he said,
"What does the broadcaster actually sound like, though, for the Diamondbacks?"
On the radio or on the radio, it's Greg Schulte, and Greg Schulte loves when the Diamondbacks are terrible because Greg can kind of start talking about his own life, doing one count right there. And I'll tell you what, my wife and I did a little something last night called the strawberry shortcake. Anybody familiar with that? You might want to look it up on the Urban Dictionary. That one's down on the dirt, no good. Schulte just loses his mind every once. When the Diamondbacks are terrible, he's still got he calls himself the governor. And when the governor talks, people listen.
What? Well, now, wait a minute. What is that about?
He's the governor. It actually is a Tom Brenneman nickname, I think.
Okay.
Where they just said he's in charge of everything down here. He's the governor of the whole operation. But he was telling me, not Schulte, but the guy in the booth said the beef's going to be the PR that baseball will receive. A, they're going to have guys complaining. B, it's going to be a paperwork logistic nightmare. And C, in order to make this thing happen, everybody gets tested before every game. And we're talking at the end of an 82-game season around 300,000 tests, which will make them look horrible if we have another rise up and tests become a thing again and you're not real sure who can get what.
Tests seem to be much more available at this point, though. And
right, but just thinking that they're available now because we've got a system for it. But if you're just designating, like, when Rudy Goddard for the Jazz got sick, and everybody's like, there are no tests, there are no tests, there are no tests. And then all of a sudden, everyone in that arena that had something to do with the Jazz or Thunder, plus the refs and the NBA, everyone got one within 24 hours. It's just the look of it that's worse. If there's 300,000 tests so we can watch, the Pirates play the Marlins, I think people are I think there's a 50-50 split. Yeah, we'll watch anything, but we don't want it rubbed in our face that they're kind of dodging the obvious thing.
You just got to take blowback.
I think baseball
take the blowback on it.
Has to do it because this is a chance for baseball to get people to watch with fresh eyes because a lot of people have tuned out. Now they have to be concerned, is the NBA going to go on at the same time, which they haven't competed with, and the NBA playoffs right out of the chute, and then when will the NFL come back? Because if baseball's competing with the NBA and the NFL, then that does make me wonder, is it worth baseball even trying this year?
But I'll tell you this, the NFL needs baseball to do something soon So there's a protocol. They don't want to be the ones testing crowds. They don't want to be the ones testing how to do this. They want to see how the template starts with Major League Baseball and get a few little out of the way.
But the NBA is going to do it. They're going to do it.
The NBA is going to play isolated in Disney World.
Right.
They're going to be almost quarantined.
Baseball's an essential happening for the NFL to have some sort of game plan because they're actually going to travel. The NBA is going to do it down in Orlando.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some logistical goofs there that could be a mess, but you know what? They'll figure it out. And again, like I keep going back to the thing. It's like, quit trying to make last year happen. Test some things out. Well, you know, put your toes in the water. It's colder than it used to be. Let's figure it out after we make some
mistakes. Change the season, but again, just put an asterisk by it and change the season. Don't try and do a full season. Make it a more interesting season. Goofing. This is the chance that everybody has to make. The NBA is going to do it, right? The NBA is going to go straight to playoffs. Smartest idea, other than maybe doing a full tournament with everybody playing or a play-in, so you can get to see Zion or something one last time. But don't play the rest of the season. Don't play it. There's no reason to play it. It's unnecessary because the ratings aren't going to be in that. The ratings are going to be in full series. Get them time to get back into shape to play. Let it happen, and then go for it with games that mean something. This is the chance for baseball to scrap 160. It's 162, right?
Right.
To
go and play half that just this year, and say everything goes back a year on contracts and everything. This is a separate year that doesn't count. If you want to sit out, you sit out. It's like they're saying that's going to happen in the public schools, that if you don't feel comfortable going back to school, they're not going to make you come back to school. They're going to have a system set up for you. Well, that's fine too. These are professional athletes, and there's some people that want to play. There's some people that are at way less risks. Some people that are at more. If I'm a multi, big time superstar, I either decide to play or I don't based on how comfortable I am. And you'll take blowback, but you have to be willing. That's what you guys are telling me the whole time. Be willing to take the blowback.
True. And here's the thing about the blowback. We as a society have to be more forgiving to the guys who just aren't comfortable with it. We have to make, like, when baseball makes their mistakes, and they will, we can't have Yahoo News and CNN and Fox jump all over them for trying for our sake. We're the ones bitching that we don't have any sports. And when they go out and give it a try, I think the reason it's such a logistical nightmare is because they're worried about the public relations. They're not as worried about the disease or anything like that. They're worried about how do we look? What can we do to make it so they don't hate us? And Blake Snell didn't help his cause with his mouth, but he had great points where he's basically like, nobody has a plan here. I'm young. If I blow my arm out in this asterisk season, and he's like, and they're telling us we have to come back or it counts against our contract, or if it's not, you're right. Just make it a wash. Everybody gets the split, whatever they want to do with the money. And that's where you're going to lose half those guys. Because I don't think if I'm Blake,
more power to them, right? Let them do it. And they shouldn't have the blowback because none of us would. You got to put yourself in that position. I was there. If I'm there and I'm a superstar, I don't want to blow out my arm. I don't want to blow out a knee taking a chance. But you know what? Somebody else is going to get a chance to do something that might not have. You're going to find some people. Some people are going to rise up.
Well, I would just hate to see like AD or Kyrie or somebody, somebody who's established lose their entire career over this hurry back to madness.
Yeah, the Isaiah Thomas thing where he kept trying to play and shouldn't have played. Anybody who ever complains about an athlete and saying you got to suck it up and play, Isaiah Thomas would have had a huge contract if he would have sat out. He's damaged goods and never will make the money that he should have had he sat out.
That would have been such a great conversation to have with Bill Walton.
A basketball brain. That's what we need in this.
I know, the guy that
as I represent the Lollipop Guild, understanding what has happened here, and they clicked my heels together 3 times, and I told them, there's no place like Rome. There's no place like Rome. Going back to the Mork and Mindy episode, as he guided his way out away from the evil Orkin villain that came after him.
He was hanging out with Robin Williams, and we never knew what really happened there.
Oh, no. Somebody translated it for me. What would you like to do?
Oh, that's right.
And that's how I pronounce it, translated it for me. They actually went to Orc.
Okay.
Mork calling Orson. Come in, Orson. Orson, today I learned a wonderful lesson. All right. So, any more thoughts on that? Because to me, it's the business of it. The owners won't open up their books in baseball, and if I were an owner, I probably wouldn't either. I get that. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying. But
I would never open up my books. Never.
Not going to open up my books.
I do have to say this about watching anything. I watched the 1977 World Series game that the Dodgers and Yankees played. And that was the first year that a team had taken full advantage of free agency. It was Reggie's first year in Yankees uniform. And then Thurman Munson and Yankee, and Howard Cosell was on the call, and I hadn't heard him in years, and it was great to hear. But he said, the best team money can buy, and they showed what these guys were making. And Thurman Munson and Reggie were the highest paid players in baseball at $330,000 a year. And it was insanity. But my favorite part of watching old baseball is, obviously hindsight being what it is. Up walks Thurman Munson. And if people don't know his story, this won't make sense. Shaun, you may not know this one. But he starts to walk up, and Howard Cosell goes, "Here is a man who is indefiably indestructible, a piece of scrap iron. Nothing will take him down." And I'm like, oh God, make this stop. Please make this stop. All he talked about was how he will never die. He is
iron.
He's scrap iron. You can throw things at him, just bounces off. Nothing will kill Thurman Munson. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the worst moment in this game. I couldn't stop laughing. And and then they talked about the invention of the high five, which was even better because
invention of the high five?
The invention of high five is credited to a man named Glenn Burke of the Dodgers with Dusty Baker. And a lot of people don't know this, but the high five, Glenn Burke was a homosexual player in baseball. And Dusty Baker hit his 30th home run, came trotting around third. Glenn Burke just shot his arm in the air, and Dusty Baker smacked his hand. Like, I don't know why I did it. I don't know why his arm was up there in the first place. And then Glenn Burke hit his first home run of his career, came around, and when Dusty was in the locker room, they did it again. So, it was either get that arm out of my way because he was a homophobic and Dusty Baker was trying to hit him, and just he blocked it and it became a thing, or they invented the high five. So that whole series was based on that. There's a lot of weird stuff in that 77 year. But so if you look at it, the reason I was telling that is $330,000 for Reggie and Thurman is the highest paid players in baseball. I think the average salary in 1977, I looked this up, for the average Joe was $13,500 a year. If you jump baseball to today from that number and put it with us, the average person would be making $13.5 million a year.
Really?
If baseball's grown like 1,000 times, or I think it was like almost 10,000 times, because it's hundreds of thousands versus $330 million or $33 million a year. And if you put that in regular society, the average person would make 1.3 to 13.5 a year. And it's insane how baseball's grown. It's insane how the owners don't open their books and the players are like, we're not getting our fair shake. But man, if you jump it off of the way every other job's grown, it's not even close.
Did either of you guys have any thoughts on ways to solve playing the games? And then we'll bring Salehi in one last time for his.
Well, my kids, their soccer practices start next week.
Oh wow!
So what's going to happen is the coaches will wear a mask, but soccer's kind of blessed because you're using your feet. And no one's allowed to touch the ball except the goalie, who's wearing gloves. So in a way, soccer, and then at practice, you use your own ball. So it's, that's why Germany, the soccer, their league has already played 2 weeks now, because soccer is really the easiest game. The field is enormous. Now they have nobody in the stands. And if you haven't seen that, that's pretty bizarre. And I guess some of the teams were pumping in sound and like cheering when somebody scores, kind of like Frank's Comedy Central special where they pumped in cheering. They did not do that in my Dry Bar special. So there are moments where I really wished they would have, because I'm like, that doesn't sound like it's supposed to. Okay. So sports are coming back for kids. Maybe not the time for adults to do it, because adults will sue.
I actually meant more of the sports, like with professional sports, with where we were going with that. Do you think Does everybody think everything's going to play? I think it's all going to. I think everything's
I
going to.
think they're all going to try. I think they're hastily throwing things together. And again, I think a air of caution and some patience would be better off than running it out there. I think NBA probably has the best plan. But I mean, the scary part is if one guy gets it, I mean, just the whole foundation falls out from under itself, and it really will be bad. I think they'll bury it if somebody gets the COVID. They'll just say,
yeah, I think that's
or something. I don't think they're going to say.
Yeah. I think college is the one. College sports are going to have the hardest time because they don't get paid. And on top of it, you've got the most liberal faculty who is, duck and covering right now. And they're going to be out there probably on social media protesting that a school would force athletes or allow their athletes to go out there to slaughter. But then the South, where college football is king, is going to want to freaking play. But I don't see Stanford and California, Berkeley wanting to play.
Right,
so it's going to be this weird thing.
That's all. It's college football is so regional, anyways. The South will play the South. The West Coast probably won't play.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
It's all going to be sectional. It's going to be almost baseball-like, where it's regional. I think that's what's going to happen there. It's going to be an asterisk year.
Do you think, though, is it something – I mean, I'm a huge sports fan. Is it something you just can't live without till we figure this out? I'd rather everything come back and be, a semblance – rather than just say, let's scramble and see if Auburn can play Alabama 6 times next year.
It's economic. I think there's more –
it's huge economic.
That people are just trying to get – and especially the media is going to cave because they need the advertising.
Yeah. But no one's thinking of the ramifications of how bad it gets if something goes wrong. The economics of it shut down 100% no chance, rather than to just bleed it out and say, we have a plan, which I don't, that's my problem, is they don't have a plan. They have a hope. And just jam them all in there and hope. And they're like, well, what do you do if one guy gets it? What do you do? And they don't, they're like, well, we'll test like crazy. I'm like, I know.
You know what? Like you said, they bury the story.
They will.
And it's food poisoning from a pizza delivered at
That made no sense at all. He got drunk. We all know Michael got plastered and it sat.
Well, I've heard stories that we'll get into that next time because but the things I've heard, he only had 3 hours of sleep a night normally and drank and smoked Cuban cigars like crazy. That's a crazy. Salehi, we're going to see some references here from you. You took some notes. Toledo didn't have the ability to get in here today. So what did you not understand from these brilliant minds that were talking at you today?
Tommy Bartlett's Robot World.
Now
you didn't know that one either, right, Holmberg? I know that one.
I've heard it, and I think I've heard it from Frank. I don't know that I know.
So there was
bumper stickers. People would have it on the back of their cars, like it was what's that? There was like Disney the Flintstones or whatever. There were a few of those.
So in the Wisconsin Dells, do you know what the Wisconsin Dells are?
My parents' honey.
It really?
Yeah.
So the Wisconsin Dells is like it's it's actually a city called Wisconsin Dells, and it's a beautiful city. And it's a resort town without any upper level resort amenities. So it's all like the Leilani Hotel. There are still hotels that have signs that say color TV here, that type of stuff. It's awesome. There are multiple water parks. It's Wisconsin. It's only open, really in the winter. But they have this Tommy Bartlett guy, and I don't even have the full story on him. Maybe that's something we could research. But he put all these shows together. One's the Ski, Sky, and Stage show, which would have like a water skiing squirrel type of deal. People do jetpacks flying in the water now. But the other thing was Robot World. And when you go to Robot World, it was like, we are here in the future. And you're watching it and you're going, this is what it's really going to be like. Tommy Bartlett must have been this entrepreneur who started in the Dells and created all these different things. So that's the Tommy Bartlett. Well, I'll research more specifically who he is.
But they're the ones who did water ski pyramids.
Right. Exactly.
that the show at the Dells. That was Tommy Bartlett's thing.
Right.
Yeah, but he had multiple.
I didn't know that.
He had different shows. When I was a kid, one of the best guys was a guy who'd spin plates and he'd break a plate. He'd go, "You like it? Or do it again." And he'd put the plate on. I spin in a plate. I spin in a plate now, and it'd fall off. Hey, you like it? Or do it again. He would go.
You say it was claymation too?
It seemed like claymation because it was
Okay.
animatronics. It was like Chuck E. Cheese. It was Showbiz Pizza Place level of. You want that reference? Yeah. Showbiz. I think they were.
I got that one. Yeah. That was before.
And Shaun Salehi's probably not familiar with the way Chuck E. Cheese used to be compared to now. It's all video screens. When you were a kid, you didn't have the actual band of.
Oh yeah, we did.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. No, like the terribly creepy little animatronic band of
Pasquale.
I was there once in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where the whole band broke.
Oh.
My birthday is like, hey, what's your name? And then they're like, it's time for the birthday. And I'm standing like a foot and a half away from the mouse and the other thing, and they're all just kind of going tick, 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 tick. And they're trying to jump back, but they were uncharged messes. And then
I got to do one more tangent. My dad we would go to Chuck E. Cheese, and my dad could do Donald Duck voice. And he would talk to Chuck E. Cheese, the guy in the Chuck E. Cheese suit, as though he were Mickey Mouse. And we'd, Dad, stop it. Wrong rodent. Wrong rodent, Dad, stop it.
Also, Pasquale's is now a higher-end pizza delivery chain for a lot of places that don't know they're getting Chuck E. Cheese pizza. That's a
I
true
also saw that. I
also
saw
that.
that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
Right. What else, Shaun?
Flamingo Kid. Never seen that.
Yeah, you know what? It's not bad, actually. It's pretty good. Robert Loggia steals the show in that movie. Robert Loggia.
Is it him or is it Richard Crenna?
Oh, you're right. It is. I always get those guys mixed up.
Yeah,
it's Richard Crenna.
Stole Robert Loggia's thunder there.
Yeah,
he did. I'm sorry, bro. Yeah, Richard Crenna. It was a kind of classic 80s kind of coming of age movie. Like there were a lot of them that were sleazy like Porky's. And then this one was a little smarter.
You'd hate it, Shaun.
Yeah, it probably doesn't.
Mom would love it.
It's been done 30 times since better.
You know Matt Dillon is, Shaun?
Yeah, wasn't he in Crash?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Something about Mary.
Haven't seen that one.
Oh.
That's the one with like Cameron Diaz though, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
Stop. You don't deserve this.
I haven't seen it.
It was 99. That wasn't even that long ago. You act like it was
so good.
Yeah, I was 1 year old. I had never.
Yeah, but still, come on. You know stuff when they rerun it.
I'm not really on shows or channels I watch.
Rice.
What else you got?
What else?
Bring it.
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah. Chris Farley and all them.
Yeah.
Are you working on Brewer still? We're trying to get Jim Brewer to come on.
Yeah, I can get Brewer. I haven't talked to him for a couple of days.
Listen, people say I'm high because of my eyes. I'm not high because of my eyes. I'm high because I smoke pot.
Still waiting to hear back from Eisen. I got to talk to Eisen. So
I screwed that up.
All right, guys. Daddy loves you. We'll see you